with great dexterity, we have decided in a kind of unambiguous way to slightly mix up this session. So I'm going to do a little bit of VisibleThread Insights, which is this new product that we're launching. And then a colleague of mine, Patrick Ryan, is going to share what he finds to be very useful as a way to help build a business case to invest in software generally, but in particular in VT Docs. So it might seem self-serving, but one of the big things that we've seen is that oftentimes you'll love the tool, you'll love the solution, but raising it up to your executive is kind of tricky-dicky stuff, right? So I'm hoping that that will be helpful. And what Patrick has done is he's kindly agreed to kind of share what he does with his accounts. That will hopefully help you guys as you actually either possibly look at expansion or investment in the first case. So I'll spend about 10 minutes, and then wherever Patrick is, I don't see him in the audience right now, but I'll get him to kind of come in and then do that sharing as well. They also have a physical sheet, a sheet of paper, words, which they'll share with you to kind of help, and I think he's going to get you to actually even fill in some of that just to help you understand the mechanism by which we actually can help make that business case. Okay, cool. So we're into kind of the wind down phase, and it's always tricky to kind of keep everybody's interest, so thanks for bearing with us. This is VisibleThread Insights platform, which graphically is kind of interesting because it's already changed as of last week, so actually this is already old. But let me explain what you're seeing here. Up in the top here is a new product called VT Insights. So the platform is really a moniker. It's a holding place for all the various components. And I'll show you this in a live demo mode in a moment. And there's two main components of VT Insights. And positionally, this is not designed for a small number of people. It's designed, if you believe that readability helps, and you heard Jessica this morning talking about the value of readability. A lot of speakers have spoken or mentioned the value of grading and measurement. And my little snippet from the guys in Canada, the Treasury guy, 1.5 minutes. The value of scoring and measurement is pretty high, irrespective of whether you're doing proposals. We're trying to communicate effectively in proposals. We're trying to win more business, but actually your colleagues in the organization are also trying to communicate better. Somebody who writes an instruction from HR, an induction policy, an instruction manual, tech pubs, an insurance policy, anything across any part of your organizations. And I know many of you are not in insurance, but equally, let's say you're a Boeing or a Collins Aerospace, your colleagues are writing content which is kind of mission critical. If I write an instruction form for a mechanic on an assembly line, it better be clear because the risk is quite high to your business. So that's what Insights is really designed towards. It's offline and online content. It's not just web content. It could be an important letter that you send out. It could be an important instruction manual for somebody who's actually on that assembly line. And there's 2 points of it. There's the Insights bit, which gives you the oversight of all of the people who are creating content. And then the second part of it is what we call VisibleThread Readability. This is the snap-out portion taken originally from the VT Docs platform where we pulled out that bit around readability. We put it into its own simple solution that somebody can get going on very quickly. So I'm going to very quickly demo readability, give you a quick feel of this. I'll highlight some of the things that are unique to readability that in fact are not in VT Docs, and I think you'll find that interesting. And then I'll show you Insights. And then, as I say, I'll hand over to Patrick, my colleague, and he'll share about how you can build up a business case. So it's 2 different parts of this session. Okay, good stuff. My first demo, so I have a couple of other slides here, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to do it through demos. I'm kind of lazy that way. I like to do demos too. And it also helps, hopefully, make it simple for you guys. So, completely different solution. I'm just going to sign into this thing. When you sign into VisibleThread Readability, you don't need a PhD to figure out what to do. You've got 3 rather large little areas here. Upload a doc, analyze a URL, or analyze straight text. 3 simple things. That's all it does. And the rest of this stuff is fairly limited. I'll show you those in a moment. But basically, Which will we do? Will we analyze a doc? Will we analyze a piece of text? Any votes?
URL.
Docs? URL, you had to say that. I'm not going to do a URL if you don't mind. Why? Because it's not the normal flow in this tool, because most people using this tool are content creators. What is a web page? It's already published. You're not fixing it. Now, you may be fixing it. And if you want to fix your web estate generally, use VisibleThread Web, which allows you audit the entire website and get a focus in on the area. And VisibleThread Web, funny enough, is also the tool you can use for competitive analysis and competitive insights, because you can point at competitor websites and get what they're talking about and get where they're positioning themselves. So, but that's a different animal, right? I don't even want to go there. So thanks for suggesting that.
Don't show me
Apologies.
candy unless I can eat it.
Correct. Thank you. So in the interest of time, however, I don't have time to actually suck the gobstopper on this one. So instead, I'm actually just going to upload a doc, if that's okay, and I'll go through a quick flow. So here's my upload doc thing. Let me see if I can find a doc that would be interesting to look at. Ah, yes. So this is a loan and security agreement from actually Fannie Mae, who are a customer of ours. It's a shorter form, and I'm going to upload this. I like to use this because A, it's in the public domain, and B, they fixed it, which is good. And to show you, this is the slider bar. It's basically doing some stuff in the back end. And once it's finished, it's quite a substantial doc. There probably is 40, 50 pages in this doc. Once we're done with that, we'll see the view that you're typically used to seeing in VT docs. So again, I'm a content creator. I want to get a sense for this document and where it's at. And with any joy, this will finish in a moment. So let's just hang tight. Once that finishes, we'll get an ability to actually see the flow that we saw, the view that we saw in VT docs. And then finally, what I'm going to do is do a quick, what we call an annotated document. And any of you who have never seen VisibleThread will find this useful. The VisibleThread users in the audience, hopefully you'll get this idea and you probably use it as well. But let me point out a few things. Firstly, there's a bunch of boxes up here. 48% long sentences. 23%, 24% passive voice. Readability, a lofty 24 out of 100, meaning it's harder to read by far than the Harvard, an academic paper in chess? A lot harder. It's a good trick, by the way. If you ever want to kind of get upper management to pay attention, upload, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or upload an article from the National Enquirer, something that's designed to be understood by a broad population, and compare it, and show, well, this is this, and this is us. What do you think? Shouldn't we try and achieve something a little bit better? So generally, this is pretty horrendous. Grade level, 16.3. Where is that loan and security agreement going to? Who's going to read it? Well, actually, it's potentially us. Mortgage agreement. You'll see this in mortgage agreements as well. They're actually very dense things. But this is readability, so you could do that in VT docs as well. But the flow is really simple here. Now, what's also interesting here that's slightly different is, you see these little yellows? They're what we call watchwords. And watchwords are a form of lightweight dictionary. In this example, we've got a bunch of watchwords. See up here? And it's basically flagging directly within the tool, in the context of this readability report, certain terms or phrases that the broader population of content producers should try to avoid, or should certainly try to review, and they're configurable. So this is different territory from, you know that dictionaries exist in VT docs, right? And you go off to a different view to see it. This is now in one place, in a really simple, easy, accessible place for somebody who's creating this document or evolving this document. So it's all about simplicity. We spend a lot of time on the UI of this. I'm showing you this also because it's a key component. It's kind of an on-the-ground component of the VT Insights platform. So every one of us in this audience could potentially be using this thing. Of course, you can also use the VT doc stuff, but there are differences here. The watchwords is slightly different from here. Adverbs. Anybody like adverbs? Stephen King referred to adverbs. What did he say? The road to hell is paved with adverbs, I think was the phrase. So now Stephen King, fine author, but he's not a particular fan of adverbs, and people overuse adverbs quite a bit. It's not that they're evil necessarily, but we could turn off and on some of these things and focus in on them. Typically, what you do next, and actually let me just scroll down here. See all this stuff? Very long sentences. Circumstances is a watchword. They're basically saying, try simpler language like in this case. Right? It's kind of little guidance here. Upon. Instead of upon, just say on. It's plainer. Simpler, right? And it's giving me direct feedback. And the cool thing about this is now I can take that direct feedback and action it directly back into the document by clicking Annotate Document. You also have that in VT Docs. Choosing the things I want banged out in that document as guidance, because I'm in this creation cycle. It's very lightweight. I will download that doc, and the nice thing is, once I get the download, I will be able to see those comments directly pinned into that document as Word comments. Not disrupting your flow, not replacing Microsoft Word in any shape, make, or form. It's just simply giving you the guidance you need to do the job. And hopefully, to fix this document. Look at all that stuff. That's why we have checkboxes, by the way, on the way out, so that you can kind of bite it off as you need. They're just simply Word comments, no add-ins, no plugins, no anything, nothing for IT to worry about. What would you now do? You would fix this document, and you might re-upload it. However, here's what actually happens. I was on site with a customer, a healthcare provider. They're a Medicare, what they call a MAC, a Medicare Administrative Contractor in the Midwest in January. Their issue is different. So they're getting, issuing letters to physicians and hospitals and nursing homes, querying the level of coverage that the person or entity is entitled to. So they get submissions, and then they send letters back, and these are all stock letters. And they're mandated by Health and Human Services, by, in particular, just a nasty phrase, or a nasty acronym, the CMS, which is the Medicare Supervision Authority that works with them from the government side. So that's all cool, right? The problem is that they mandate headers and footers that are full of legalistic blah, stuff that is out of their control. They must use that. And many of you are in the same situation. You're forced by legitimate concern and risk concerns by your legal colleagues to make sure that you have certain boilerplate in there. So how do you not contaminate the core content and actually fix the content that's under your control? Well, here's a simple thing. Here's what people do. They take examples of this stuff or content from this. They go back to the readability solution, and instead of uploading the entire doc now, I'm going to have this doc opened up in my second monitor, I'm presuming many of you have 2 monitors, right? It's fairly standard in most places these days. And rather than using the upload doc thing, I'm going to simply whack it into my text editor here. There it is. Same flow, very simple. I'm going to analyze that piece of text, which is under my control, to fix that particular piece of copy. Think about it as kind of micro-targeting in the context of the overall doc. And what you get is this. So there's quite a bit of crap here. Excuse my language. The entire section, 19.1 grade level, not great. And I'm now going to edit this out. I still have my doc over here. I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to directly tighten this up in the context of the tool. And that's kind of nice. So let's see what this says. I know you can't read it, so I'm going to read it out to you. Any application by a lender of any collateral or security to the repayment of any or all of the portion of the unpaid principal balance of the mortgage loan upon blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's do something simple. I'm just going to split this sentence up, right? I'm not going to spend the mental energy to fix it, because honestly, this is going to take a little time to fix this thing. I'm just going to split it up, and I'm going to say, and then it goes on to say, any such repayment shall require the payment to lender. If you repay, you must pay or send a payment. I mean, this is not great, but you must send a payment to lender by borrower, blah, blah, blah. So I'd whack all this. I mean, it's fatty language. It's just full of turgid stuff that nobody's ever going to engage with. But I'll go ahead and reanalyze it. So I've tightened it up moderately, right? That was at 19.1 grade up here. I reanalyze it directly, so my experience is much more interactive. Now I've got it down to 13.7. Now I'm at least on a direction that makes some sense. Okay, so do you see the engagement here? It's very different from VT Docs. VT Docs is, let's upload a bunch of docs, let's generate readability reports, let's maybe hand them back to the authors. And we had a lot of examples where that's very valid, right? But let's say you said to your subject matter experts, actually, guys, I'm going to equip each one of you with this thing. You can now fix your content. You can get all those reports that I've been feeding back to you. I'm reduced on my bottleneck effect, and you are empowered to fix the content way sooner in the life cycle. So back to Brad's lovely little echo chart and the kind of the heart attack territory stuff. So you're flattening it out. You're pushing up the load earlier in the cycle, and you're empowering people, because what happens with this stuff is that it gets very addictive. That striving for 13.7, you feel really good when you turn it green. It's really nice. It could be gobbledygook content, of course. Nobody's arguing that. There is nobody in VisibleThread telling you that we're going to think for you or build you the perfect proposal. You're responsible for that stuff. But it's basically this flow, right? And what we're doing in the background, and I should really use my time wisely here, so let me just speed on very quickly. What's nice about this is that we're building stats. We're tracking all this stuff. And interesting, here you see licks showing up because there are some licks. There's a Spanish FAQ document with a licks measurement. It also has a grade level. So I'm building up as I and all my team members, they're each individually using this environment. They see their own stuff, so they're not seeing other people's stuff. But we in the background, we're gathering all this data. Now here's why that's nice. Now part 2 of the VT Insights platform. Now I've equipped 100 people or 5,000 people with this thing. Now I want to know, is my overall quality across the organization moving in a right direction? So this is enterprise stuff. It's actually, the CMO says, God, our brand ethos is clear. We want to be really clear. We want to get our message out. We want to be known to be trustworthy. Because trust is actually, the big benefit of this stuff is increased trust, better engagement. It's the case when you submit a proposal to the government, you're increasing their trust in you to deliver well by reducing the BS, by reducing the gobbledygook, by allowing them to easily understand your offering so that they can have confidence, because your offering and how you project yourself in terms of your submission does reflect subliminally how they think you will deliver. Whether you think it or not, that's what's happening. You're putting out a message that reflects you. It's kind of like if I showed up here with a t-shirt and shorts and sandals. I don't know, would I be that credible? I do actually wear those occasionally, so that's a different thing, right? But you need to be contextually aware as you produce your content. So that's what we're trying to do here. So the brand, what about the brand? Let's go to the second element here. How do we see across the enterprise whether this thing is actually making some sense? Whether we as an enterprise are changing? So this is VisibleThread Insights. I'm going to sign into this. This is a view that allows you to see 2 core things. You always have to have dashboards and stuff in these kinds of things because everybody loves an old pie chart or a graph. Here's some graphs. That's cool. That's just a summary view. I'm actually going to go and answer a certain question. The question I like to answer, because I invest in software, we as a company invest in software, you all invest in software. What's heartbreaking and soul-destroying is when you invest in software and there isn't usage. It's soul-destroying for us as a vendor, but it's worse for you guys because you're making an investment, you're training up people, and they're maybe not using it. So what's this telling me? Well, I'm going to change my perspective. I'm going to ask the question, last year, in the course of our rollout of VT Readability, which is now provisioned to, in this example, initially in January 2018, 5 users, goes up to 23, 52. You see this graph? The blue are the number of people that were active during that month, meaning they ran scans through VisibleThread Readability. The orangey color is inactive users. So I'm now getting a sense, and we're kind of up and to the right a bit. Ooh, there's December. Anybody any idea why December is bad? Santa Claus. Okay? And that's really important. Now, we can do all manner of stuff here. We can slice by week. We can slice by month. We can look at last quarter, last year. So in effect, it's a query engine done in a really simple way. Second thing I like to know is who's my most active user. Here's Ian doing loads of stuff. This is all anonymized data, but it's actually a real account in Australia which has been anonymized with their permission. Okay, so this is real stuff. Ian, blah, 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 lots of scans going on there. More importantly, how big of a stick do I want to wield? against these bad people who didn't touch the tool last year. They didn't do any analysis. Now, here's the question. Is it because they weren't aware that this was out there? Is it because we didn't give them sufficient training? That kind of data is really important. So the question is, do you want to be a meanie and actually whack them on the head, or do you want to help them understand the value of clear language to the organization? And that's really important. So these views are really important. There's a lot of content stuff. The biggest value, however, is, fine, now I've got all my users who are actually using this stuff. What's the story in terms of quality? Is the quality of what I'm analyzing getting better? In other words, am I improving or disimproving? Where am I at? So these little charts are basically over time views of things like grade level. I'm actually going in a decent direction from February, and then I spike to 10.7 in March. Maybe there's something up with that. Let's go last year and see what that story is. So it looks like in general, grade level is actually pretty decent. It's kind of trending in around the 8.2, which is good. And grade level tends to be the universal leading indicator of clarity from the point of view of this stuff. Rightly or wrongly, that tends to be the case. By users, who's doing what, when, and where? Who's actually scoring well, who's not? By content, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what we're going to be doing in future iterations of this is introducing additional views that leverage all this data that we're sitting on. You might remember we talked briefly about watchwords. Remember that yellow sticky kind of highlighting in there? We're also tracking watchwords. Now, why would watchwords be interesting? Let's say you're in an organization that has suddenly discontinued a product line. Or you're a financial services organization that no longer does a 3.25 intro rate on your credit card. How do I check to make sure that people aren't inadvertently still referring to 3.25 in my content? Now, I'm giving you a financial services example because we're doing a lot of work for financial services, healthcare, government. You all have equivalent examples of this kind of stuff, where you need to be looking proactively at the content going out the door to make sure it doesn't reference certain things, or if it does, to be sure that it's in the right way, in the right context. So that's what watchwords does, and that gives us an overview. One watchword seen in the previous 6 months. So that green is the watchword. So this is a good news story in terms of this. And the orange is the number of scans. So you can see here one watchword there, and I can find out exactly by content who was that person that actually used that watchword. And somewhere here, if I scroll down, I can see this. Okay, and I'll probably want to sort on watchword hits. There you go. So me, I'm the person that used this. I've got 66 watchwords showing up here. So I'm the villain of the piece here. That wasn't a setup. I didn't even know who had did watchwords, but there you go. In this hypothetical environment, I would be a person that needs to be spoken to about something or other. Let's put it like that. Okay, cool. Does this make sense? Can you kind of see the broader remit of this? So readability is a lightweight snap-out solution that is allowing individual content contributors, people who are typically not in your core teams, possibly they may be, but actually your colleagues in sales, in marketing, people writing sources saw, people writing white papers, whatever it might be, who can now start to self-score, and then Insights gives you the overall sense of where it's going. Scott?
Question. So if I had an editor or a team of editors, and I'm less concerned about what they're given, because it's, in my particular case, I'm coming from our clients and external sources, but I am very concerned about how good material it is, how readable it is, what
Right.
output. And it might be useful to be able to compare the one to the other. Would that use case supported by that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the use case. See, the thing with docs is that you're going to put in all of the content. You're going to put in the stuff from the government for very good reasons, because you got all these nice views. So if you were to consider VT docs as, the content is coming from government, and government could well be, 16 grade, or grade 16, should I say, it could be whatever. The solution for the content creators in your organization, those SMEs in your organization, subject matter experts, readability is a far better solution for them, in my opinion, to allow them self-score. That's an opinion, it's not. We have many customers who use VT docs, but then what you do is you centralize the usage flow. So you have, let's say, 10, 15 users of VT docs. They're typically proposal managers, proposal coordinators, volume leads. They're getting content from a third party, i.e. the subject matter experts. It's coming over, They analyze it, they send back a report. That's the flow, right? Anybody who's a VT Docs user, that's the flow, right? But if you want to make the process even more efficient, equip those guys with this thing so that it actually even removes that bottleneck. It actually spreads out the load and gives them more power to fix it. So layer a bit of VT Docs in there for sure in the central team. Layer quite a bit more in terms of seat users of VT Readability. And there's a completely different pricing model, by the way, on VT Readability. And then you have the insights. If there's a decent chunk of people and there's visibility that you want to get up to the executive team about how great you're doing, that's where insights becomes a crucial tool. It becomes a really interesting way to make sure that you get this broad visibility, which right now, nobody has. That's the problem. There are point solutions out there that will do readability analysis, but there's no way to get this overall sense of all the billions and millions of words that are being produced in your organization, because everybody is now a publisher. We're all creating content. Whether we like it or not, we're all writers, basically. And that's the internet, that's the blogosphere, that's all this stuff. And all marketing is telling us to do is put out more stuff. Content is king. More stuff. You listen to people like HubSpot. They'll tell you put out 10 blog posts a week. 7 great ways to do whatever to get attention, because nobody has attention. The goldfish picture from Jessica earlier is true. The attention span is really small, and yet we're churning out all this content and we're not checking it for quality. It's equivalent to, in a web context, if you never use Google Analytics to see what's the traffic to your site like and whether people are churning or not, are they following through on their customer journeys. This is the first solution that will do this in earnest in a more enterprise setting, and that's why it's pretty exciting for us. So we're very excited by this, and we're getting a lot of very, very strong positive feedback, particularly from senior colleagues in your organizations. So that's working really well. So I didn't really mean to get into a kind of rah-rah sales type pitch, but I hope you can kind of see the value here. Of course, if you're interested in actually talking more about that, all of my sales colleagues would be delighted to talk to you as well, so reach out to us for sure. I'll take one final question, and then I want to pass to Patrick, who's going to talk about this kind of, how do you build a business case for an investment of any of this stuff, and what we found works well. Go ahead.
Kind of match with what Patrick will be saying from a business case point of view. I can definitely see the use and advantage of VT readability as a product and use in an organization. Would that be available as a standalone without having to go buy a VT Insights?
So we can work with you on that. We typically, what we do is we have an offering. So typically, most of the deals that we do are basically VT readability with VT Insights. Can it work without VT Insights? Yes. But if you're serious about the movement in the right direction, it kind of somewhat depends on the size of your organization. Where VT Insights shines is when you're proving and showing value to executives, where you're actually really seeing what the engagement is like, and you're really showing the value. Can we, do a deal where it's VT readability on its own? John, who's sitting at the back of the room, is our Chief Commercial Officer. I'm going to give him a hospital pass and actually ask him to answer his view on that.
Thanks. Great question. Coffee afterwards.
Okay, thanks. So you'll see on page 1 of this particular document, it has a space for your name and then a space to the email that you'd like the results to be sent to. So let me talk a little bit about what we can use this for. One is for recommendations on how to get more out of the VisibleThread docs. You may not be using it fully. There's 7 major features, and from working with customers, there's many that they're not using. So this will be able to reveal that, perhaps. Also, we can tally up the answers here and then send you back so you can see how you compare the usage to the other folks that fill out this survey. And it'll also give us another data point as far as potential enhancements that we're working on. And the final thing that this can do for you, if you want, is it'll feed back as far as a return on investment calculation of how much time savings that you can actually get from the VisibleThread software based on what you're actually doing in your typical day-to-day. So this first page is actually has to deal with doing these tasks manually. And the first column in green here would be how much time does it take in hours to do this particular task manually? So for instance, if we read that first line there, it says review RFPs to make a bid, no bid decision. So is that 1 hour? Is that half an hour, 0.5 as a half an hour? And if it was, say, for instance, a half hour, you would put 0.5 in there. And then for each response that you do, about how many RFPs would you actually evaluate? And that's the second column. Insert below number of times conducted. So we're going to go through this very quickly because I want to get to the panel discussion. So within about 5 minutes, in fact, I'm going to start my timer here to make sure that we get this done very quickly. Any questions, though, because I'm not sure that was as clear as it could have been as far as describing what this is and how it can help you. Okay, so if you put your name there and the email address you want the results to send back, we can review this, and if we see areas where we can use the software more, we can notify you of that, as well as show you how you compare with the others in the responses.
So Patrick, just to be clear, I suppose the intention is that I think Patrick is asking you to fill in this form, and then you're planning on totting up the results, anonymizing them, and distributing it to everybody so that you can all get a sense for how your fellow professionals are actually working on this.
Exactly.
Is that
so
correct?
you'll leave this form here, and then we'll total it up for you and get back with your the results for you individually as well as collectively. Exactly. Okay? All right. So we're 54 seconds in, so let's go. Because what I'd like to do is just estimate. Don't worry about being precise. This is the time for the real quick decisions. So review RFPs to make quick bid, no bid decisions. Does that take 1 hour? Does that take half hour? Does it take 0.25? And then how many times do you do that in a particular proposal that you actually end up working on? How many RFPs are you reviewing? Okay. Next one is review for risky language in the RFP. Okay, so the first column is how long does that take you to review for risky language in the RFP? And then do you do that more than once in the second column?
And Patrick, just to be clear, this is on a given proposal pursuit, right? On one particular proposal.
Yep, thank you.
So if I spend 2 hours on one proposal analyzing risky language, then it's 2 hours. It's half an hour, 0.5.
And this is manually. Number 3, locate FAR clauses for review. Is that a 1 hour process, a half hour process, 2 hour process?
And if it doesn't apply to you, just put in NA, not applicable.
And think about it from a corporate perspective. It may not be your responsibility, but in order to get a full view of the value, the ROI of the document, of using the software, think about it from a corporate perspective, if you would. Okay, first cut at building the compliance matrix, pulling out all the wills, the shalls, the musts. Compare changes between 2 versions of a Microsoft Word document or a PDF document. How long does it take you to manually do that? And then typically, how many times would you do that? Once or more than once? Comparing changes between Microsoft Excel sheets. Do you do that? How long does it take you? And then how many times do you do that? Check acronyms and extract the acronyms. Okay, review for cliches in the response. How long do you do that? And if so, how long does it take you to do that? And do you do that one time? A couple more here on this page. Review your proposal to make sure it matches the RFP. So doing a compliance gap analysis. If you do that manually, how long does that take you? You review your proposal for readability. How long does that take you, and how many times do you have to do that? Check for clarity of message, understanding, and single tone of voice. Check response docs for liability, credibility, and deliverable issues. How long would that take manually? And the last one there is validate core differentiation is in play and consistent message communicated. How long does that take manually? And is that a one-time thing, or do you do it more than once? Okay, 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And then the next page is going to go much quicker, but the last one on this page is estimated number of proposals per year. This is important because what we'll be able to show you is your time savings with VisibleThread Docs if you're using it for these capabilities, multiplied by the number of proposals per year estimated, just a number that you would estimate for a calendar year. And that'll help with showing your justification as far as amount of time savings. Okay, any questions on that before we quickly go to page 2? And this one's going to go quicker. Okay, thanks. So this is, page 2 is estimating, okay, if I do these things, could it improve the probability of winning by 1%? This line item, could it improve the probability of winning by 1%? Is it fair to say 1% or no? So just circle yes or no for each one, whatever you think. So the first one is ensure Excel compliance matrix has all the requirements. So making sure you've captured every single requirement as it relates to this electronic
Patrick,
extraction.
I don't want to get awkward or engineering on this, but let's say I think it would improve by 0.5%.
Yeah, I want to make it simple.
Could
If
I
you
do
want
that?
0.5%, that's great. You can just write it in. We'll include that. But otherwise, it's just yes or no. Yeah.
Because I haven't used it yet.
Yeah.
Acronyms, does it pull, how many letters does the acronym have to have for it to pull it? Is it 2 or 3?
Let me address
That by the miracle of pattern matching and science, there's no restriction. The actual algorithm is, and this is for the acronym pull. Anyone use the acronym stuff? Yeah? Okay, so you realize that it basically rips through the document. There's no predefined dictionary. By pattern matching, it basically says, and in summary, it says, if I find a word where more than 2 letters are capitalized, then interpret that as an acronym. Because if you think about acronyms, they're not all uppercase, DOD. And they're hyphenated. And there's a lot of brittleness with acronyms. It's not, and if you're IT colleagues who think, yeah, we don't need to invest in VisibleThread because all I do is a macro to do this stuff, you get so many false positives that it's just a waste of time. So the engineering that went into the acronym pull was quite substantial, actually, to deal with all the iffy cases and the special cases and the hyphenated cases and the beginning with lowercase and the uppercase and all that kind of stuff.
Show you what the first instance is?
Yes, it shows you all instances.
It also shows you if they don't match and you've used incorrect somewhere else. It shows you repetition. It shows you
Conflicting definitions.
So it's not just an acronym pull. It's basically saying, right, you've got conflicting definitions, or you've got usage before the first definition. You may have defined it, and you're cocksure that you defined it, but you actually use it inadvertently before you actually defined it. So again, anybody involved in acronym hell, and I use the phrase deliberately, it's a nightmare to manually check that from a human standpoint. Scott?
It's very important because when you multiply some of the longer names that some of the customers have, and you gather up technical materials from many sources, your raw initial edit is you're going to get half a page.
Yeah.
50-page technical where you're like, you only say DOD 1 to 1, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Department of Defense to 1 time. That adds up.
It certainly does. The other thing that I've seen, and I'm sure you guys have lived this particular pain, you go and fix all the acronyms on version 1 Red Team, and your lovely friendly colleagues over Beyond give you back a revision with all of those fixes undone again. It's just a nightmare, right? So it's just really to address that and actually get that use case sorted.
Thanks. All right, let's finish. Anybody need more time? I think you're pretty much, okay. Let me go ahead while we're changing, put my email here, but if you finished it and leave it here, I'll go ahead and do what we said, analyze it for you and send you back the collective results. Okay, thank you very much.
And Patrick, is there a place in the form for an email address that we can send
Yeah,
this
right
to?
on the front page.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Thanks for everybody's cooperation. This was an interesting psychological experiment to see if people would work with us on this. So it's all-style data gathering. We're not using SurveyMonkey for this, but I think it's interesting to actually for Patrick to go through that. That set of questions, they form the basis. We have fairly sophisticated Excel spreadsheet versions of this stuff that we can plug these numbers into, and you'll start to see dollar values come out, both in efficiency, and that second page is about quality improvement and actually improving your P-win rate. So you can start to see fairly significant savings on both sides. So it makes the overall argument to the execs much more powerful because you're putting hard numbers on the thing. Particularly, I think one of the questions that we normally ask is, how big is your average proposal? And I know it's hard to be definitive on that, but if you can size the cost of this and you improve the P-win on that, then you can approximate, within reason, a certain amount of savings per year from the quality standpoint.